Recording has started.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. The directors present tonight are myself, Daniel, Pam, and Larry, with Doyle and Tom being absent. Good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Woodbury County Board of Adjustment. Today's date is August 4th, 2025, and the time is approximately 5:03 p.m. Tonight's meeting will be audio taped and the minutes will be prepared. In respect to all parties, we ask that those present turn off cell phones or set to vibrate. Those in attendance are asked to legibly complete the attendance sheet up on the front table. I would like to take a moment to review the procedures that the board will follow tonight. First, the board will handle the normal housekeeping agenda items. Then for each application on the agenda, I will open the public hearing on the item. The planning and zoning staff will then present the staff report, including the staff recommendation. Any letters or other communication received from the public prior to the hearing will be entered into the record. The applicant will then have the opportunity to present his or her case and respond to the staff report. Next, we'll hear comments from the public. If you'd like to speak either in support of or against the application, you must come to the microphone. Please state your name and address for the record. All interested parties shall be heard, but repetitious comments should be avoided. Repetitious or irrelevant comments may be ruled out of order by the chair. I ask that you remain respectful and courteous with your comments at all times. After all public comments have been heard, the staff and applicant may make a closing statement. The hearing shall then be closed by motion and vote. Thereafter, no further comments from the staff, public, or applicant may be heard unless asked for by the board. The board shall then deliberate the case and may ask questions of the applicant, the staff, or any party offering testimony. However, such questions do not reopen the hearing for additional comments from the public unless so requested or approved by the board. The board will then formulate and vote on a motion. The motion will typically either grant or deny the requested application. Any board member who has an ex parte communication to place in the record of this meeting should do so prior to the beginning of deliberation of their respective agenda item. Any person desiring to appeal the board's decision to a court of record may do so within 30 days after the filing of this decision with the Planning and Zoning Office. Okay, so with that, are there any public comments on matters not on the agenda tonight? Okay, seeing none, I believe we have some new information that was presented to us prior to the meeting, so I would entertain a motion to receive new material.
I would so move.
Do I have
Receive the material.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Mr. Pucci, do you have something to add before we?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that this is a document from Woodbury County Rural REC, basically about the processing of new grain bins. It's just information for local officials as far as some regulations pertaining to grain bins and electricity.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Priestley. Pam made a motion to receive the material. Larry seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion carries. Okay, I'm going to move down to item 4, approval of the previous meeting's minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
I move that we have.
Okay, motion by Pam to approve previous meeting's minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Larry. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. I'm going to move down to item 5. The public hearing is now open. Mr. Priestley, would you please read the staff report?
Yes, this public hearing is for the conditional use permit application from Bruce Sorensen on behalf of the Bruce and Rochelle Sorensen Living Trust, who plan to operate a borrow pit for earth materials to remove a hill and construct a driveway for access to the hilltop on parcel number 894531200004. This respective property was reviewed by the Zoning Commission, and I will point out that some grading and removal had started and the project was put on pause for a period of time. The county reviewed the agricultural estates zoning district requirements, and the supervisors ended up approving an ordinance making this conditional use permit request technically able for us to review under the rationale that agricultural estates districts can be out and about in the county in spots that have a significant level of agricultural preservation in the region. And therefore, being able to look at each district and each location on their own merits, they found was appropriate after going through the 3 public hearing process at the Board of Supervisors level. Because this project started kind of beforehand, it's expectations anytime that we do grading, that there is a plan in place as far as a grading plan, as well as MPDES permit number 2, which is required from the state of Iowa, the DNR in particular, as well as having a SWIP plan. I believe the zoning commission, as far as the recommendation written to you by the chair, Christine Zelmer-Zant, that they do send the recommendation over to the Board of Adjustment, basically under the conditions that the missing items are accounted for as potential conditions. Chair Zant had said that a haul route, an operational plan, including hours and project completion timeline, a stormwater pollution prevention plan, often referred as a SWIP, and state permits, including the Iowa DNR permit, MPDES number 2. So with those types of conditions, they feel that it could technically be approved that as long as those conditions are met and the applicant submits those to the county before they commence with the respective project. If that's a path that the Board of Adjustment chooses to take, the chair would ultimately sign some type of resolution at the time of the receipt of those respective documents, just to ensure they're included within the record. I will, for full disclosure, say that the Iowa DNR has been in touch with our office as far as this respective grading project. They're looking at it, of course, through their angle, through the MPDS. They have an expectation that the applicant completes the MPDS requirements. They've looked at the site through some photographs, and they do have some concerns about the open dirt. It's been that way for some time, actually since maybe about April or May as the project was put on pause. And if you've been out to the site, you may have seen a berm and some measures that they've put into place to try to keep runoff away. But the DNR kind of expressed to me that open dirt at times can be exposed and vulnerable due to the erosion with the extensive rainfall that we've had. And they mentioned it's a good idea to look at some best management practices to prevent some runoff. They'd like to see something of the nature of some straw or some even temporary seeding if necessary, depending on if they get to 14 days. So if it kind of goes over 14 days or so, then they would want to have those mitigation measures. If it's before 14 days, it's not as big of a problem because they would immediately probably go and begin their grading and continue with the borrow removal. So basically erosion control measures, even on a temporary basis, might be something worthy of consideration. They would really like to see a barrier between the site and the right of way or the road so that there's no temporary runoff that would affect the project. Again, the straw or seeding could potentially be an option. And as far as when they engage in the MPDES permit, they have an application procedure. I understand at times when you do an MPDES, you got to have some sort of public posting and a document as well, or a paper of some sort, is my general understanding of how the state addresses that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, staff would like to see a copy of the MPDES number 2 permit, a SWIP plan, as well as the haul route. Those 3 things are very key to accomplishing and commencing forward with the borrow pit. I think in practical purposes too, maybe a return of the topsoil and some of the common sense aspects of what a borrow pit would entail. It's always good as well when we do these kind of projects to look at a permit termination or an end date as well as a potential condition. We were looking to know, based on what the zoning commission said, is what is their project timeline? And without that respective information there, it's always good to put at least some level of completion date at the end of the permit. Typically permits generally in the county are good for 1 year overly, and that's usually a reasonable, safe number. And I know when Bruce was here last week, it was kind of referenced that they're eyeing to get the project done. So I don't really see a huge issue there, but just for the good of the county, it's always good to have a date when these permits do expire. We do not have that information, so I would probably either suggest that we put those conditions into place and empower staff to work with him as well as with the chair of this board, so that we can get that information. And ultimately, I think have something in there that says that the permit will be issued once the information is fully received to the satisfaction of the county.
Question. When the project was started, was it approved then to do this borrow pit at that time? And then it just got
What,
on hold?
yes, excellent question. What had happened is the landowner looked at this from a very practical aspect. He was kind of in a situation between being ag exempt and not ag exempt. He is a farmer. He approached the county engineer's office and looked at access for another driveway to that respective parcel. They ultimately, I think, worked with him on that driveway, and he got the impression that they could kind of proceed with the project as far as the dirt removal and everything. Staff got word from the public that that activity was going on, and staff explored who was involved with it and ultimately made contact and asked that the project be put on pause until we sort things out. At the time, the ordinance prohibited this respective conditional use permit. The Board of Supervisors looked at this as a problematic issue because of the fact that AE parcels can definitely exist outside inside of agricultural based areas. So they basically looked at it from the aspect of you have to look at each unique location, and just banning it based on a blanket zoning district may not be the best approach. So they brought the zoning commission, looked at it, and the Board of Supervisors looked at it, and they went through the normal legislative process, 3 public hearings to edit the ordinance to say that conditional uses can be decided and considered in agricultural estates. So this ended up being, in a sense, pointing out a problem with the county. It was referenced in the board materials that we do have practical problems out there that rise up to the definition of a borrow pit. And this particular site has a large hill where it could be construed as a snow trap. And so ultimately, having that hill drop down to a reasonable level is actually in the public interest because of making the secondary roads job much easier on coming through and making the ability for future snow traps. The county engineer ultimately oversees the right-of-way locations, and farmers, if farmers are using the dirt on their own parcels and their own land, they can fall under the ag exempt. Mr. Sorensen is a farmer, but removing that dirt, he was not bringing it to another parcel on his own farm because he's not doing that and likely selling it or moving it in a different way that it doesn't involve the actual activity of farming. It's what triggered the actual ordinance. And so that's ultimately why we're in this situation at hand. So this ultimately came to the zoning commission and the Board of Adjustment as a way to mitigate this largely misunderstanding kind of scenario.
Okay, thank you for that explanation there on that, Mr. Priestley. I guess, is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this application? I don't believe so here in person. Do we have anyone on the phone?
We do have one on the phone, but I believe, if I may ask, who's on the phone?
Dana Neal.
Okay, Dana. Okay, he's for the next agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah.
With no one here to, no public here to comment on this, would it be appropriate to close the public hearing and then have our board discussion on this? Okay. I guess I would ask to entertain, someone to entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this respective item.
I so move.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Pam, second by Larry to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion carries.
Okay, for the good of the order, you do have two options. I think one of the options, like I said in the public hearing portion, is you can put the conditions on there and have a resolution technically approving it. With the exception of not receiving what we're looking for, the applicant has worked with us. I think one of the aspects that's made it a bit challenging even for the landowner is he's worked with some third parties and has had some expectations that they would help him kind of through the process. So I understand how that can be at times when you're collecting this information, collecting this plan. I think when you look at the project as a whole, it is specifically to make the land more usable, whether I know in his application he mentioned for development or just simply using the land. It's not such a big hill up there. It's leveling it off and just making it more of a usable piece of property at some point. I don't know if it would ever facilitate additional crops. He does have some ground directly south of there as well. But generally, with that said, I think it's reasonable to look at the conditions approach under approval. Of course, you always also as a board have the tool to hold it over for the 35-day and look at it again at the next month's meeting. But with that said, I do think it's possible to work with them by way of the chair as well as myself, seeing to it that they submit the rest of the information. Larry.
What kind of a timeline did we give him for the three items that we've asked for
Um,
from the zoning commission's perspective?
The zoning commission really, I think they deferred it to you to see that there's some type of end date on it. They didn't really, a lot of times, again, they look to the fact that they don't run the public hearing. They look at the recommendation. We learn a lot more when it's a formalized public hearing that happens. Of course, agenda items, the public still comes, but the way that the ordinance is designed, the public hearing is where more of the homework comes. So they did approach it, and they traditionally do on as far as saying that that's one of the potential options, asking you all to kind of flesh out typically with the applicant. I think without the applicant here, I think the 1 year, the 1 year from when the permit is signed is fair and reasonable, because that's what it is on building permits. That's what it is on floodplain permits. So it's consistent and it's not too short or excessively long. If that were to be the case, the applicant needed more time, they would just have to come back for a renewal and run back through this respective process.
I think from what I've seen from this, it's something we could, approve with conditions. And I mean, those conditions that I see, that we would put on this would be to submit an operational plan detailing the haul routes, the hours of operation, dust control, noise mitigation, and a project completion timeline. That's what the zoning asks us to do. So I think those are reasonable. Also, second condition, I would say, the stormwater pollution prevention plan, erosion control, even if it is temporary. I don't know, do we need to outline the erosion control by word or just say the DNR would like, or do we just forget the DNR and say there needs to be some kind of erosion control, even if temporary?
The staff does hold the grading permit. In other words, we issue it at the staff level. And one of our expectations of issuing the grading permit is that they both have a SWIP plan and the MPDES. We always apply that to the borrow as well. And you'll see in the packet there, I believe, which page was that on? Bruce, on page 13, had submitted that grading plan. With or without the Board of Adjustment, staff has to work on those grading plans. So if something's not a borrow pit, but you have a significant project where there's a lot of dirt being moved around, staff still holds them to when you grade over an acre. you have to submit that permit as well as copies of being good with the DNR, the MPDES and the SWIP plan. So staff can technically have that tool in the box as far as the issuance of that respective grading permit. So as far as the scope, I think it's important that these items, like the commission had pointed to you, do become part of the process and be turned in. But I think we can kind of play those together as far as the big package, because technically you still need a grading permit along with your conditional use permit. So I think the expectation that they submit that stuff is fair. When we look at our standards and other considerations for a conditional use permit, we have many. One of them is all possible efforts, including building site design, landscaping, screening, have been undertaken to minimize any adverse effects of the proposed use or development. I think we have language there that would have expectations that that site is suitable and all the necessary things are achieved through the state to ensure that they are compliant. And we do have those tools. We can condition those tools. And I think you could generally put together a reasonable resolution that would support the aspect of helping him work toward completion of the project and really mitigating kind of where the scenario is at, but still having the expectation that the respective paperwork gets turned in.
Okay, so I guess with that, I had kind of mentioned the two previous conditions. I guess a third condition would be to comply with all the county and state regulations for borrow pit operations, including the submission of the copies of what Mr. Priestley referred to as the NPDES number 2 permit from the Department of Natural Resources. And then I guess number 4 that I had written down here was a date of expiration.
I would suggest that it be pointed to the actual date when you sign the resolution. So when I come out to see you and you sign that and you date it the August date, that date will go to that date in 2026.
Do we need to add that as a part of our condition, or is that something we just put in?
You would put that as a condition and we can see to it that it gets in the resolution.
Okay. Is there any comments, Larry or Pam, that you guys would have towards this or suggestions? I'm looking at page 8 in the packet is what I'm looking at, where I've written some notes here.
Well, I would just like to say, I agree with Dan, what he's recommending. I think that it sounds like the route that we need to take for this particular item. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Pam.
Well, I guess the question I have is, would we, I mean, he's not here today. So I take that as we had to contact him by mail. I mean, we have some items here that we've asked questions on that he's thoroughly aware of it, correct?
Yeah, and for the record, he did attend the zoning commission meeting.
Okay.
For sure. And so he has been a part of this process. I've emailed him and I've discussed it with him. So he generally knows what is required as far as the plans. And he's expressed to me that some of the challenges are working with the folks who he's had help him through the process.
So he is working with the zoning commission still.
Well, his appearance at the zoning commission did show his commitment to see it through. And I had called him, of course, before the meeting as well, and he wasn't able to get here, of course, in time. And I told him I'd let him know the result.
Well, Dan, I guess the only thing we can do is, I make a motion that we move this forward until, He knows what we're looking for, correct?
Yeah, he knows that we're looking for the route and those respective plans, and I could even pull out an email that was sent as well, kind of explaining,
I make a motion that we table this until we hear further correspondence and from him.
Or can we go ahead and approve based on if he fulfills our conditions?
you can technically put the conditions on that if he meets those conditions, it's approved. If he does not meet those conditions, it's not technically not approved because those conditions need to be clearly empowered. And that's where I was referencing that, he needs to get that stuff in and that'll activate the approval. And again, the MPDES technically is a routine thing. I think that, if he fulfills what the state is looking for, it's a document that just empowers him to grade and to, use the footprint, for that property. The SWIP plan is your common practices of ensuring that there's no, runoff, and it mitigates it, like the silt fencing, the proper, vegetation control, et cetera. That's typically a part of those respective plans. We do those under grading. So I guess what I'm getting at is the grading permit itself, I'm empowered as staff to issue that one. As far as catching the MPDES permit, I can't issue the MPDES permit with over an acre without that documents in place. So we have that check or that safety valve as far as that staff oriented permit. In terms of the conditional use permit itself, he does have a footprint plan. He showed us the site, and the things that I'm the most interested in out of that is the haul route, where the dirt is being hauled and the impact of that, as well as the time frame when it's going to be ended, and just generally the logistics of the operation of the borrow in general. But again, this is a temporary project. It's not a perpetual project. Once he gets the dirt out of there, it goes back to a restoration mechanism so that it'll be left the way that in perpetuity once he gets that dirt out of there.
So with that, Larry, I guess I believe this is something we could actually approve tonight with conditions. So this is something that necessarily tonight we would not have to table for a further meeting. So would you like to withdraw that motion, or would you like to continue on?
I'll go ahead and withdraw that.
Okay. Is that
That's
okay, Mr. Priestley?
That's the will
Okay.
of the board.
Okay.
And Larry, of course.
Okay. Pam, are you okay with that? Because I believe this is something we could act on tonight without tabling. Did we clear that up for you, Larry, or?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, I think that we can act on this tonight and just have the conditions in place, and when they're met, then go forward from there. And I know you have all the conditions listed, so maybe it would be best if you made the motion and listed them all.
And you can make the something in there if it helps for clarity that the permit will be issued upon receipt of those respective items. So I think that can be fair as far as getting the haul route in particular. I think again that you got to make sure that, when you require something of somebody, it's rooted in what our criteria is for a respective conditional use. We owe that to the applicant, that it's part of our regulations. And again, we're looking at the development not having a substantial undue adverse effect upon adjacent property. I feel that language there is why you need a SWIP plan, because the SWIP plan will help us understand about runoff and vegetation control. And what I had mentioned, what the DNR told me too, and full disclosure, they gave me a contact name they would like me to put the landowner into contact with, so that they can commence on wrapping up the MPDES permit. DNR has an open, from my understanding, they have a vested interest in this because it's one of the state requirements that they get this respective permit. So I will be talking with our counterparts over at DNR as a result of what has happened tonight. And I mentioned kind of the powers of the Board of Adjustment in terms of some of these conditions. So as long as we have an all hands on approach as far as the communication channel between the applicant and the others, I think that's helpful. And I think conditions that you put into place, that you can have the permit executed upon receipt of this. So if Daniel signs the permit at that respective date, and then that date starts the year. And so those are things to consider.
Yeah.
Or you could do.
Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Approve. And then just listed the conditions.
Hey, you could.
Okay. Does that look okay to you, Mr. Philippi?
Yes, these are all the things that we're looking for. So,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay. If appropriate, according to Mr. Pucci, I guess I will go ahead and make the motion for this then, if that's okay with the
Yep.
rest of the board.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so I make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit with the following conditions. Number one, there needs to be a operational plan submitted detailing haul routes, hours of operation, dust control, noise mitigation, and a project completion timeline. Number two, submit a stormwater pollution prevention plan and implement erosion control, even if temporary, and site reclamation measures to minimize environmental impact. Number three, comply with all county and state regulations for borrow pit operations, including the submission of copies to the county of the NPDES number 2 permit from the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. Number four, the date of expiration will be determined by the chair's signature on the permit for this borrow permit. And number five, the permit will be issued upon receipt of above mentioned conditions. Does that, will that work for staff?
That does work for staff, and I do want to point out one thing during mid-motion. We, of course, followed the same protocols with any conditional use, and we have not had a whole lot of public input on that, including from the neighbors. So I think that does speak to a lot as far as understanding that this is a temporary endeavor to achieve a result that the landowner's looking for.
Okay, so with that motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, that my motion has been seconded by Larry. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion carries. I'm going to go ahead and move down to our next item. The public hearing is now open for this. And Mr. Priestley, would you please read the staff report?
Okay, I do want to point out that this agenda item, this public hearing is one of 2 public hearings on the same topic, pretty much. This one here is for a variance, and the second one is to empower the conditional use. And so I want to make logic out of the full scope and the full picture of this project that you heard about at last month's meeting, which was of course tabled. And so what we will first look at is, of course, this public hearing is for the variance application from Kevin Heiss, applicant of Rent Properties LLC, to consider alternative locations for a 14 by 48 double-sided LED billboard on parcel number 884606100002, who requests to reduce the required separations and setbacks in the ordinance from other off-premise signs and zoning districts such as AE, NR, and SR to facilitate a conditional use permit request in the next agenda item. So you'll see right away, these two things play off of each other quite extensively. And so I'm going to try to navigate this file up before you. But just going down memory lane a little bit last month, this respective item was tabled. We had members of the public talk about potential other locations to mitigate potential effects of this. And the applicants have presented two different alternative locations as part of this conditional use. And one of the things I do want to mention is the Woodbury County Zoning Commission did take this agenda item back last month. They did not have to. It's not written in code, but to ensure a sense of due process that Doyle Turner had mentioned at last month's meeting, we felt it was very important to discuss alternative variance locations with the Zoning Commission. The Zoning Commission also knows by statute they do not play a role in variances, but I wanted them to be aware of the fact that adjustments could be made at the Board of Adjustment level. And because this parcel is so large, larger than most other parcels out there, that if it wasn't based on this type of parcel and they decided for another location, it would have ultimately kind of reset what we did before. But ultimately, because we're on the same parcel, we're in good standing as far as looking at these respective alternative locations in this proposal. The applicants, the first time around, I know spent quite an extensive time looking at the area to come up with the location on this property based on following the rules as far as where you put it relative to the ordinance. And that's why original site number 1 ended up so far to the south. You'll kind of see these numbers on the screen. This is just a rough sketch. That's where the original one was. And then the variance they're asking for either location number 2 or number 3. So the Board of Adjustment generally has the menu of options on which location that you might very well approve tonight as far, or if you don't approve the variance and you don't see the variance is necessary, then it reverts back to location number 1, which ultimately was part of the original conditional use permit process. So this variance here is a result of course, input that we heard from the public as far as maybe not wanting to see it at location number 1. I will say this, I didn't mention this enough in the previous meeting. This area here is along the Highway 20 corridor, and the comprehensive plan for Woodbury County has the corridor basically from the borders of Sioux City all the way to Lawton. So in other words, there can be an expectation of commercial development along this corridor moving ahead. And what that means is even with agricultural land out there, that whole area is in a situation where if a landowner wishes to rezone the property for a commercial purpose in the future, they have support from the comprehensive plan. What that means is a project is brought to the Zoning Commission and to the Board of Supervisors asking to flip the district over. That's part of the future planning through 2040. So that corridor could ultimately develop. And the fascinating part about this is people can get building permits by right on the commercial parcels to put up buildings, to put up facilities, to even put up signs that light up. So there's technically the ability to have commercial development on such parcels, including this very one. And the reason I bring that up is because it's imperative for the good of the public to know that not all permitting is the same. And because not all permitting is the same, we can run into inconsistencies where building permits can be issued for on-premise signs. And this is an off-premise sign, is how it's defined as a billboard. And so with that said, and everything that we've gleaned from the public, we've gleaned from the information, and as far as the variance language, I think as a result of what the governor and the legislature had passed that became in effect on July 1st on looking at the variances differently, I think the practical difficulty language in the variance means much more now than it did before in terms of setbacks, because they're very much geared toward distance setbacks under the ordinance. Before, you had to, the threshold was much more difficult to get a variance. We've experienced this in this very board where we had to look at the economic hardship, where the county ordinance and the characteristics of the land hit somebody so hard in the pocketbook that that's what made a variance achievable. We also have the practical difficulty language. So we're definitely dealing with a different variance application now than we were on June 10th of this year or another date prior to July 1st. So with that said, there's 2 locations that are being asked for the variance. What gives staff usually the most heartburn is the floodway. And the floodway, it appears based on the data, and this is again, not survey data, but informational data where I got GIS file from the DNR that kind of showed us where that floodway is. And the definition of floodway is pretty much, I think the easiest way to say it is where the stream is and where the water flow is and where ultimately it will spill out of the banks. And based upon where they put this and where we see from the GIS data, location number 2 and number 3 look likely clear and free of that. But I do want to, for the good of the public, say this parcel is still in the Zone A floodplain. They, like we mentioned in the last meeting, they're still subject to the floodplain development permits, which just means the locating of a structure within the floodplain. They appear to be okay from that. From the staff perspective, it's okay as long as they're not in that floodway zone. And based upon the site plan and what has been presented, either location 2 or location 3 looks acceptable for this respective permit. We did receive another letter that was put into the packet. It was already in the packet, but I do think it's worthy to mention that Jerry Steffen down the street did look at the site as well. And he reaffirmed his statement of last month that he was okay with that respective location. So in terms of the variance, staff generally can see the situation at hand that was presented really in the forum of the public through the forum of the last few meetings. And it appears these proposals are reasonable in terms of the alternative locations. Again, when you alleviate based on variance, it does create conversations on would we in the future want to look at this ordinance language? And that's pretty much a Board of Supervisors and Zoning Commission question. But the idea is, are we going to need to look at these in the future? Because this was a 2008 ordinance. And as you know, policies ebb and flow through years. Things do change. Technology changes. I imagine a lot of this LED is state of the art and much different than it was years ago, that probably can have chances at even mitigating questions that folks might have. But with that said, that's pretty much the staff report. And I would say that the applicants are here, and we also have a gentleman on the phone as well.
I have one question, if I could. Does that mean that we have to decide site 2 or 3? We as a board, we have to pick one and say, okay, we're going to approve number 3 or number 2.
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct. You could pick one, you could pick 2, you could give the applicant the option, approve them both,
Oh,
give
okay.
them some flexibility on how they want to do it. But I think ultimately for clarity, it's probably good with the applicant being in the room tonight and the public, at least we've got one on the phone. Dana's on the phone. And I think that having a clear answer and a clear message is very helpful. I tried to spend a lot of time on the conditional use. It is the next agenda item. You will in effect have to open up a public hearing, but I think you need to know as much about the conditional use to approve the variance. And so you may find that the next agenda item, depending on how you rule on this one, the next one might be real straightforward and quick. So we packaged it to put the variance first to discuss that. And so
Okay, thank you for that, Dan. I guess with that, do we have anyone here to speak on behalf of this variance application?
That's okay.
it's on.
It's on. Perfect. So just little history, Dan. Oh, I'm sorry. Kevin Heiss, 204, Buckeye Circle, Lawton, Iowa. On behalf of Rent Properties. So we came before and obviously number one was within all the compliance of everything that we asked, or a good portion of it. And then we were asked in the last meeting to take a look at 2 alternative locations by multiple people. So we did that. I want to make a couple comments on where we're at. Typically, the DOT has a standard of 300 feet between properties. The county is 1,000 feet. So either way, we're moving, if we move the sign forward, it makes a lot more sense. It's going to look better. It's where a sign should be. It's going to line up to other signs, essentially, that are along Highway 20 instead of sitting in the middle of a field. So number 2 would be, in my opinion, essentially the best location. We can certainly put it in number 3, but at the end of the day, there's probably going to end up with a sign someday on number 2 anyways, because if that property ever gets developed, it's going to be an on-prem sign that could potentially be approved where number 2 is at. Number 2 also creates more accessibility for us to get in there and do the work, because there's the road that comes through there already. And for us to get on and off the highway, there's already a path through there versus coming the other way. And there's also potential trees that block the sign if you go to number 3, although we would accept either 2 or 3, whatever you guys approve. But at the end of the day, if this is long-term going to be commercial, there's probably going to be signs up and down that corridor, whether they're on-prem or off-prem. And if we did ever develop that property, our goal would be to use that sign for our on-prem, which is a different discussion. But at the end of the day, that also moves it further away from Dana. The previous spot was about 1,070 feet from his house. With this, it would be about 1,140 feet going to location number 2. Location number 3, it's a little bit further from Dana's house, but also moves it closer to potentially some other houses. But at the end of the day, that would be Jerry Steffen, which is said it's fine. We also did talk to the neighbor across the street, and he was also fine, although didn't enter anything into the record, but we did discuss with him Scarecrow Farms across the street, and he was perfectly fine with the location and where we were talking about with number 2. And I think, Slater, I don't know how many feet forward that is from number 1 to number 2. Is that probably about 150 feet forward from the middle of the field, but still plenty in terms of our setbacks off of the road and the waterway. It also, we've talked to the DNR. We've also talked about the floodplain and all those things. So we did a lot of work prior to coming to the first meeting. Dan's been with us in terms of discussions and meetings and being involved. So we're trying to do the right thing by everyone involved. And we feel like, again, number 2 is our best spot just to long-term, there's probably gonna end up a sign in number two, whether it's now or down the road when it's on prem. I mean, that's speculation, but if that property ever gets developed or property next to it, there's gonna be on-prem signs along Highway 20. Any questions on that or comments or things that maybe you want to ask?
What's just a off the wall question, Kevin?
Yeah.
I'm curious, what kind of an investment is a sign like that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's upwards of, what do we say on the app? 360?
Yeah. Just.
360,000 to $400,000. It's not a small investment. And that's why we want to get it in the right location where it looks good and that, you know, there's other signs in Sioux City that are this exact style. And we did do a study, a light study, and I'll let Slade talk about that because I know, Larry, you weren't here at the last meeting. I think it's
Right.
important to understand how dim that would be for anything 1,000 feet away. So if you want to talk about that, Slade.
Yeah, Slater Elm, 527 Sandstone Circle in North Sioux City. Thanks for having us tonight. Yeah, we did, we heard the concerns of the public and did a light study based on the number one location. That location, and actually Dana, who's on the phone, number one location, it puts it about 1,070 feet away. The light hitting his property is 1/100th of a lit candle. Okay, that's location one. Location two is moving it farther north. In our opinion, a better location for proximity, less light hitting his house. We didn't do another light study, but it's an extra 70 some feet. Plus it's farther north. And it's a perfect location as far as sign visibility from both ways. That's really at the end of the day, it's what you're selling. Number three is a viable site if we're gonna have a tree problem over there, and it might be a tree problem we can't fix. If you move to page 81 in tonight's agenda, if you could roll that up on the screens there, and I want to show you something.
Do you want to just talk about the technology, how the brightness changes from day to
Sure.
night, just so Larry's up on that?
Sure. So the technology we use is from Daktronics. It's LED. At nighttime, it goes down to 4% of full power. For lots of reasons. Sometimes you've seen a sign that's just too bright. It's hard to read because your eyes are trying to adjust. These are brought down to about 4% because it saves power. It's much more readable, and you don't have light pollution, quite frankly. That's exactly what the product's designed for. It also uses less power, which at the end of the day saves us money to power the particular units. Yeah, so that's page, yeah, so 81 would be the side views that you did.
Yeah, I guess I'm not seeing 81 as far as,
It was your PDF page 81.
yeah.
So,
No, I was reading this correctly. It's just a one-sided sign. There's nothing on the back side.
it's a sign shaped like this.
It's a V sign.
It's a V
It's a
sign.
very
so
small piece of pizza.
East and west on 20, you'd see it
Both
both
ways.
sides.
Correct. Yeah.
Nothing from, if I was traveling that gravel road from
Correct.
south,
You
going
want to,
north, I
that's
wouldn't see
correct.
it.
There's nothing on that one.
Okay, so the house up on top of the hill, and I'm new to this conversation here, but
Yep.
just drove past it today. The house up on top of the hill, is that
Yeah.
gentleman on the phone right now?
Yes.
I believe so.
Dana Neal.
Okay,
I believe so.
Did you have what you want to display in hand by chance up there with you? What we're looking
I'll find
for?
the page if you. hold
She's
it.
good. If you zoom in at the bottom of that page,
This
right
one?
there. Yeah, I want the area of the red. Oh, now scroll up. No, other way. Keep going down. No, I need the floodway map. It's over to the right. Now you gotta go down. Keep going and over to the right. Okay,
Yeah, right there.
you see that tree outside of the red, but in that ditch area, that's gonna be an issue for us if we put that sign there. There's lots of rules in floodways about removing trees too. Nothing you really want to get into.
Correct.
I'm not sure what that's outside of that's in the right of way zone and it's really, really, really close to the floodway. So I don't know how it sits. Number two in this same picture here is clear of all those things. The daylight requirement from the Iowa DOT, which would be our next, if approved tonight, that's our next application. But that's fine. That helps the situation with Dana that Dana was worried about light pollution at his home. It helps that as much as we can help it. It's as close as the road as we could get it to help with that.
Question.
Yeah.
Will that sign be lit 24 hours a day then?
Absolutely.
Although it will come down at night,
It comes down 96%.
just because it's dark out.
Correct,
And
yeah.
it shows up better.
The only time it goes full power is when the sun's out, right? And then you can see it, right? But those run 24/7 and for advertisers to advertise on. It'll be nice for that corridor to, promote the businesses coming up and down 20.
And I just have to say this, I was down in Oklahoma here a couple weeks ago and, personally for the first time had seen some lighted LED signs during the daytime. And, downtown in Eda, Oklahoma, quite pleasant to look at. They weren't,
Right.
like going down the strip in Las Vegas where they just jump
Oh.
out at you. I mean, very,
There's so many, there's no movement can happen on the graphic displayed. You can't have a QR code that would distract from somebody driving and grab their phone and go. I mean, there's
Okay.
lots of rules around what can put on there
okay.
and then how long it can stay up. But no
Then
movement.
automatically it dims at night.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And you guys, can program it from wherever you're at as far as what you want to say on it? But nothing moving on it?
Nothing moving. You may want to promote a breakfast item at Perkins, which is just down the road towards the
Right.
city in the morning, right? And you may want to promote pizza or something else later in the afternoon for a different customer. So lots of different. That's what's so nice about it compared to a static board.
Right.
Static board, that's it, right? Which is great, but this allows a lot of versatility.
Okay.
More tax revenue too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Then you can also advertise for whatever. I mean, however many different companies, whatever you want to
Yeah,
pay
I
up
think
there.
it's,
Homecoming, I mean, it could be a lot of things.
Okay.
yeah.
Could be a lot of things. Player of the week, Optimus, student of the month. I mean, it could be a lot of things.
What's nice about it is it brings a lot of technology to our city, and I think as we want to develop that corridor, it shows that we're also moving in the right direction with technology, because I own a lot of property along Highway 20, and I know others do as well. And I think, eventually we might be able to snag some key businesses if we want those out in that area. And I think it shows that we're moving in a direction with technology and using technology to our advantage. We're excited about it. It's we don't know how it's going to go as far as getting our ROI or return on investment, but we're going to give it a try if approved. And like I say, the first meeting, we were in compliance with number one. It's just the wrong place for that to be. And I think Doyle hit that pretty hard in our last meeting, as well as some of the other folks in the previous meetings. And so that's why we came back to the table, and we would like to do it the right way. And Dan's been very helpful in terms of guiding us, getting all the permits and getting all the paperwork filled out. You asked what Nick was doing. Nick did a lot of the paperwork, so.
So is this the first sign of this type in the local area? Are there other digital signs like this
There's
that you know
probably
of?
3 or 4. There's more coming, especially on the I-29 corridor.
Okay.
But as far as on Highway 20, I believe it's yes for a long way, probably till you get to Ames. Pretty close. I
Okay.
haven't seen one, so.
Does anyone else have any further questions from the applicants? Okay, I guess you gentlemen can be seated for now then, if you don't mind. And we have somebody on the phone, I believe. Is that correct, Dan?
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, so Dana Neal here. I live at 1774 162nd Street, the home on top of the hill. I'm totally okay with option 2 or 3. I would prefer 3, but understand that two might be a better spot for them. That's all I really have. I thank you guys for your time. I thank Kevin for exploring different options, and I, by no means am I trying to stop progress along Highway 20. I would encourage it. Eventually, I hope that someday our farmland is part of that. But right now I live here and that's what I see. So like I said, I appreciate any consideration for option 2 or 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Neal. We appreciate your public comments. Do we have any other comments from the public? Okay. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Priestley?
Yeah, I do. I want to be real clear as far as what's being asked for in this variance. Of course, we have the 2 locations, but I think logistically, if the Board of Adjustment makes a motion to put this into place under the realm of a variance, we got to look back at that description that was on the agenda item, because logistically, we're asking to shrink the required separation distance from the agricultural estates zoning district, as well as the other distance that was enumerated in there from the existing billboards. And so if you're looking at approving this variance as far as locations 2 or 3, it'd be a good idea to pick the location and also make a statement in there. And I would say giving the applicant the latitude on what that range is. They have to meet the setback for the zoning district, which is 50 feet back off of the right of way. But logistically, you got to alleviate those other 2 numbers. And so when we have it written in there where it says on page 34 there specifically the applicant seeks these variance requests to reduce the zoning ordinance required separation of 1,000 feet between off-premise signs to a range anywhere between 1,000 feet and 200 feet. That's quite a bit of distance, but the goal is to get it below 1,000. And the required separation of 1,000 from agricultural estates to a range anywhere from, again, 1,000 to 200, which move them closer to the general commercial zoning district minimum as I referenced on that 50 feet. So if you're to put a motion together, I would suggest including that paragraph in there or a form of that paragraph, because when we get to ultimately, because if this variance and the conditional use permit get approved, we're also doing a building permit for the site plan and the location. And so when you get to the building permit level, you just want to have the flexibility there that you put it, at that location that you're saying. But having the range flexibility offers, I think, good clarity as far as where this is going to go. So you're dealing with the 50-foot setback, and then you're kind of pushing it up and the ebb and flow with the others. So technically, if you're to look at the 50 feet from our right of way, and I know you get the DOT standards there, but it gives you the flexibility to push it further north if you can, if that makes sense. So that's where I think using the ranges kind of make it more helpful. And of course, locations 2 and 3 have been kind of our reference point for what they've shown us on the site plans as well. So. And just for the record, the public hearing is still open.
Okay, do we have any other comments from the public, either here or on the phone? Okay, seeing none, I believe I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Sorry. I move that we close the public hearing.
Okay, Pam's made a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Larry. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion carries. The public hearing is now closed. I guess I will now open it up between ourselves here for any further discussion. Does anybody else have any further comments?
My feeling is that I would vote to approve site number 2. As long as we give him a range there. I think he's got everything all in order, and I think that I could approve that.
Well, and you know, just listening to Kevin and sir, what's your name? Slater. Just listening to the two gentlemen, and if I was having that kind of an investment, I would want to put it in an opportune place. And if we have an option between 2 or 3, and they've mentioned they would prefer 2, I absolutely do not have a problem with that whatsoever. I mean, I would want my sign on 2 versus 3. I don't want to have to contend with trees. And I think 3, if I looked at the flood map, that was probably closer to the floodplain anyways, if I looked at that correctly. So 3 would be out for me if I was going to put up that kind of investment. And if I had a sign, I would want it visible, not have trees in the way. So I guess having said that, I would like to make them, go ahead.
And before you do, I would suggest on page that we have up here on the packet, you consider that beginning with specifically. It's up on your screen too, but that
Okay.
helps in those ranges.
Okay. So I would make the motion specifically, the applicant, that they seek these variance requests to reduce the zoning ordinance required separation of 1,000 feet between off-premise signs to a range anywhere between 1,000 and 200 feet, and the required separation anywhere between 1,000 and 200 feet, which moves them closer to the minimum general commercial zoning district, minimum front yard setback requirement of 50 feet or more. And then I'll just end it there, if that suffices.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is you're getting both they're getting a variance for both the zoning from the other billboards as well as away from the agricultural estates. So I think what you're getting in there is to approve the variance to reduce the required separation of 1,000 feet between off-premise signs to a range of anywhere between 1,200 and a variance for the required separation of 1,000 feet from agricultural estates, agricultural estates. Of course, we have the other districts in there just for coverage, non-agricultural and suburban residential zoning districts to a range of anywhere between 1,000 and 200. I know you touched on that. I'm just kind of repeating.
Okay.
Do we need to streamline that motion, Dan, or have we?
It might be a good idea if Larry would kind of streamline that.
So can we put if I wanted to read this again, can we put a period at the end of 200 feet? Just stop the motion there.
Yeah, it would put the range, just make sure the ranges are in for both variances.
Okay. So,
Larry, if it would, not to interrupt you, if it would help you, I kind of, I guess, summarized your motion, the first part of it. Would that be okay if I read that to him? And then, so I'll summarize the first part of your motion, and then all you'd have to do is come up with the summarization of your second part
okay.
that you're working on now. So you made a motion to approve the variance for site number 2, reducing the zoning ordinances required separation of 1,000 feet between off-premise signs to a range anywhere between 1,000 feet and 200 feet. So that's first part of your motion. And now you can continue with the second part of your motion for the next separation distance.
Okay. So continuing on then, and a required separation of 1,000 feet from agricultural estates to non-agricultural residential and the suburban residential zoning districts to a range anywhere between 1,000 and 200 feet, which moves them closer to the minimum general commercial zoning district, minimum front yard setback requirement of 50 feet or more from the front lot line on the property located. And I think that would suffice.
That will cover it.
Okay.
Okay, are you good with, staff good with that motion?
Yep.
Okay. Do I have a second on Mr. Philippi's motion?
I second it.
Okay, the motion has been seconded by Pam. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion carries.
Now, get the next one.
Okay, yes, I will move down to the next public hearing for conditional use permit. The public hearing is now open on this, and I'm going to ask Mr. Priestley to read this into the staff report.
Okay, with this open public hearing, just to be clear, the last one was for a variance, and now this one is specifically for the conditional use permit from Kevin Heiss, the applicant Rent Properties, to construct and operate an off-premise 14 by 48 LED billboard on the parcel 884601100002. Based on what we had just experienced as far as the descriptions and everything with the previous agenda item, I think you pretty much alleviated this with the respective variants considering location number 2. In light of what you have experienced, you may consider, of course, this would be more so after you close the public hearing, but approval of the conditional use, recognizing the location that was approved from the variance. So kind of putting them together in a sense, but approving the billboard, yet again, approving the conditional use. And so that's all I have for comment. And of course, the applicant is here. And we've got a member on the phone as well from the public, so.
Okay, would the applicant like to address the board on this conditional use permit? Any further comments? Okay, seeing none from the applicant, do we have a member of the public on the phone?
Yes, it looks like Dana's still on the phone.
Okay, Mr. Neal, do you have any comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I believe we could entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this item. Okay, so I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Motion by Pam to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Larry. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, all opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion carries. Public hearing is closed. I'll now open it up for discussion between ourselves here.
I think it's simple. I'm just, we can approve.
I agree. I think this is pretty straightforward. We hashed it out, I think, and covered the bases with the variance. Does anyone else have any further comments on it or any questions? And Mr. Priestley, you suggested that a possible motion needs to include
Yep.
what we did for as far as a site.
I think you can make a motion approving the conditional use request as per the requirements of the variance. In other words, you could recognize that the variance was approved, of course, associate that with a resolution and approve it based on the proceedings that went through authorizing the location number 2. So I think it's technically, it sounds like there's a lot of information there, but you're basically approving the or approving the conditional use permit with all the expectations from the variance.
Okay, I guess, if the pleasure of the board, I could entertain a motion. I guess I would make a motion to approve the conditional use permit with all the expectations from the variance for site number 2. So do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, that's been seconded by Larry. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, that carries.
For the good of the applicants, it'll take us a few days to process. We've got to do some paperwork on it. We'll have to talk building permit for the structure and the floodplain development permit. That's the administrative permits through the staff. I'll have to meet with the chair in the next few days, get that signed, but we usually take a few days yet to get that stuff settled. So if you have any questions, let me know. Just a phone call away and we'll talk some more soon.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, with that, I will move on to item number 6. Do we have any public comments on matters not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll move down to item 7. Do we have a staff update?
Just one thing, tomorrow night, Tuesday, 4:30 is the third reading of the nuclear ordinance modifications that have been before the Board of Supervisors the last 2 weeks. I just want to affirm again that the language that is before the Board of Supervisors is specific to having a permitting mechanism. Should we ever have any potential nuclear energy facilities or nuclear waste storage sites that would go through a conditional use permit process. This is all specific to having an ordinance framework, not for a site. It's not a site application. We want to be real clear to that, to the public. It's not permitting of any kind of plant or storage facility. It's just so the county has a framework in place to handle any potential permits. It's been a fascinating last 2 weeks before the Board of Supervisors, and we just are very hopeful. We have maximum public participation at those meetings. It's always helpful to hear all the perspectives that are brought forward there. One of the top requirements in that ordinance framework is the zoning commission in their recommendation over to the Board of Supervisors found that one of the biggest insufficiencies with the existing ordinance before the change is the notification zone was stuck at the 500 feet, just like any conditional use. And so they put a 10-mile notification range on that. So it maximizes the public notification. It also specifically defines what nuclear energy facilities and nuclear waste storage are. And it takes away the vagueness in the ordinance that would have, under the current framework, would have put the zoning commission and the Board of Adjustment in a position of interpretation versus having a definition. And definitions are much more practical when you have an ordinance in place. So again, the kind of the basic analysis or summary of this is it's not for a project coming anytime soon. It's so that the county is in a position to have a framework, should we ever at some point in the future be considered for a location where somebody brings an application through normal order, where we can ask questions and scrutinize what the projects are about. The second item, the third reading and the third meeting before the Board of Supervisors is the housekeeping item that the state legislature had recently passed legislation allowing for a second dwelling on a property without going through any other permitting process. We used to have a conditional use permit for a house on a property, a second house for a worker or a relative. The state removed that and took the county's ability to put restrictions on it. And now it's subject just to a building permit, but the chief requirement is that the second house must be 1,000 square feet or 50% of the size of the primary structure on the property, whichever is greater. It can't be greater than so if you're sitting there between the numbers, you got to either hit the 1,000 or hit the other. It can be a bit less than that, but it can't go over that. And it also has to hit the minimum dimension according to our interpretation of 23 by 23 is our minimum size of a housing-based structure. So that's going before the Board of Supervisors strictly as a housekeeping measure because the state law actually negated the local ordinances for both the city and the county. And so we're just removing out our restrictive language to get into compliance with the state. So that's the kind of the summary there. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add at this point, but if anything comes up, I'll certainly send out an email or some form of notification. So.
Thank you for your work on that, Dan and Dawn. You guys do a lot to make things flow smoothly for us here, so we greatly appreciate that. I guess with that, is there any board member comment or inquiry? Okay, seeing none, I guess I would I entertain a motion on number 9.
I would move to adjourn the meeting.
We have a second?
I would second that.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you, guys.